It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
And a fine Saturday matinee to you, gentlemen. Steve, Andy.
Good morning.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the morning show.
Wow.
All right. See, now we've learned where the line is. Too early for that, Steve. Stay in your lane. Now, as I speak to you both, it is a very dark, early Saturday morning here in Oregon. And I believe it is safe to say neither of you have seen the only movie that people are talking about. Is that correct, Star Wars?
That's not correct.
Oh.
You saw it?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
I thought you were seeing it today.
Well, I am.
Again? Wow. He's seeing it every day. That's what Andy does.
Today's the day for the kids.
He's in the Blot Nelson zone where he can watch 5 hours of movies in 30 minutes.
He's actually in the theater right now, Steve.
Yes.
That's right.
So let me just ask you this then. I have one non-spoiler question, and I have asked everybody this. Did it make you cry?
I don't know if that's a fair question to ask. It's setting
fair.
people's expectations up.
I just want to know if it made you cry, Andy.
It did make me cry, Pete.
I knew it! I knew it would make you cry, and now I'm going to have to take some tissues.
Yeah. I'm a crier, though.
Well, no, the question is, did The Force Awakens make you cry?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Curses.
To be fair, though, there were like at least 2 trailers before the movie that also made me cry. I'm a big baby. What can I say?
What do you do with food at the movie? Because I'm going to the 9:20 movie, and I always feel a little bit shaky about getting popcorn in the morning. I never feel
bad about that. When you're 14 and your body can do anything, sure. At our age, yeah, that becomes a questionable decision that you may regret later in the day.
Well, here's the thing. This is the way I look at it. If I eat movie crap at a night show, then I'm a mess and can't sleep. But if I eat movie crap early in the morning, then I actually have the day to burn it off.
True.
Is that rational at all? Am I?
That works.
I may be reaching.
That works.
I may be reaching.
Yeah.
So load up, everybody.
For me,
load up.
It's more just the cost. It's so expensive to bring the kids, and then everybody's like, "Oh, because we're going again. It's going to be lunchtime," and I'm like, "We are eating lunch first because I'm not feeding anybody at the movie theater because then it's a $50 lunch. And we're not paying for that."
Right. Well, we're going in just a few hours with JJ and his family, or his kids at least, as well, and we've heard is that it's a tearjerker in places.
Okay. It might be.
So JJ is going to be a mess coming out of this.
It's going to be a mess. Are you, Steve? Are you still unspoiled?
I'm completely unspoiled. I'm right there. I'm right there with Ben Lott. Walking in really nothing. Not because okay. So here's the story. I almost got spoiled because I went online to do a favor for a very good friend of mine named Andy Nelson to go watch on Investigation Discovery Deadly Dentist, and so I'm in the app online watching episode, and then of course these things, because I don't subscribe to cable TV, it's going to throw commercials in there, and it's always like, oh, some weird medication for this and stuff. And in the middle of the commercials, all of a sudden this Last Jedi thing comes up. I'm like covering my eyes, running out of the room. Like, what are you trying to do to me? It was his secret plan. Yes, exactly.
Maniacal laugh.
Exactly. So I almost did. Thanks to Andy.
I haven't seen the latest trailer, I don't think. I've seen other trailers though, and I have also seen footage from one of the cut scenes of the Star Wars Battlefront 2, the Last Jedi downloadable content. So I've seen a setting that looks really, really good, but otherwise,
a setting.
I don't know anything about any story elements. I have no idea. Although what I've heard is that you see the movie and then go watch the trailer, and it's holy spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how that counts if you're not actually spoiled. If you don't know you're spoiled when you're watching the trailer, and then you watch the movie and discover you were spoiled, I don't think that's a spoiler.
It has, I don't know, because I watched all the trailers, and the latest one, I'm like, gosh, I feel like it's spoiling stuff, but maybe they're playing with me. And in retrospect, I feel like they might have just been playing with me, putting things together. I mean, I can see where there might be some spoilery things in there, but I mean, that's the nature of spoilers. You're showing stuff, but usually it's without too much context until it's 2020 hindsight.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the worst spoilers are, if like Empire Strikes Back, the trailer had been like, Luke, I am your father, it would have been like, that would have been spoilery. Yeah. But it's like, oh, look, there's, scenes like in the desert and there's scenes on an ice planet. Yeah. Those aren't spoilers. I think what we're getting into is it major plot reveals that would ruin some of the suspense of the story is what really is a spoiler. Whereas I'm going further than that, which is I don't want to know anything because I start thinking about the movie, and when I'm halfway through, I'm like, wait, we haven't seen that part where this happens, so I know this character is going to be safe until that point, or, oh, the story hasn't progressed to the lava planet yet, so I know we still got a whole big chunk of story to go. So to me, it's really about plotting the story that I don't want to know anything about. I don't want to be trying to anticipate where things are going because I have prior information about locations and characters.
I gotta hand it to you, Steve. That is like the clearest reason not to watch trailers. That's not pedantic and a little bit frustrating. That is a very clear explanation of your position. Thank you.
But it gets to a point where it's like that's like reading the back of the book to find out what the story's about. I mean, you can say, but the book kind of told me this stuff happened, so now I'm expecting it. And it's like to a certain point. I mean, there's a level of marketing that I think is expected, and I think in the world of trailers, some of that is to be expected. And yes, you might see locations that happen at a much later point in the film rather than the earlier points in the film. But if you're going to kind of get a sampling of what a story is about and, what it could do for you as far as kind of giving to you as a story, I mean, I guess that's just the nature of it. And I'm okay with that.
One day we're going to get a movie that is of the market and economic strength of Star Wars, where the director just says, you know what, only this poster, no trailers. You get a poster and it's white and it with black print that says, this is the movie. You're going to see it on this date and there will be no trailer. And you know what? We're going to see it anyway. We're going to see the hell out of it because it's a movie like that. This is a movie that didn't need a trailer. Like we would have gone anyway. But I see your point.
Well, yeah. I mean, Andy, to your point, I agree, because there was a discussion, I think, on Flickchart where somebody was like talking about people sort of blind buying movies, like buying a movie on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever that they haven't seen, and why that, that's are you willing to take that risk? Whereas people do that with books all the time. You buy books that you have never read yet, so why not buy a movie you've never seen before? But I think with movies and with books, a book is a much longer experience, and if I get a general sense of the story on the book, especially if it's an author I'm not familiar with, I need that. I usually want that information. Whereas you tell me it's Rian Johnson making a Star Wars movie, I already know what Rian Johnson does as a filmmaker. I know what Star Wars is likely to be about. I'm willing to walk in blind. But something like Lady Bird, that's a trailer I'm willing to watch. And I've always said, if I'm not sure if I'm going to see the movie, then I'll take a risk on the trailer because, I have no idea what to expect. So I want to know, is this something I'm willing to spend this much money and this much time on? But for movies that I absolutely know I'm going to see, or in the case of Ready Player One, I'm willing to bend the rules because I've already read the book. You can't really spoil me on the plot. The spoilers are probably going to be in deviations from the book. So it's not the case with all movies, but really the ones that I know that I want to see, I want to have that pure experience. The ones that, like trailers that you guys have picked today, I'm willing to watch those because I don't know much about those movies enough to decide that, yes, I know I definitely want to see them. So, I want to see that trailer to let me know and make an informed decision.
Sure. I mean, it's like a Stephen King fan saying, oh, well, I'll just buy it and read it. I don't need to read what it's about because I know it's Stephen King and I love reading him.
Exactly.
What do we know about what's going on in the box office? I think it's pretty much Star Wars all the way down.
Yeah, Star Wars and Coco, I think, are probably going to be the big ones. But I will say, Ferdinand has been getting some good counter-programming reviews for the kids, and it sounds like a good one to take the kids to. So I think that's probably a nice one to kind of pair. I mean, I know Star Wars is obviously going to attract a lot of the kids too, but I think I'm curious to see how that one does, because it actually is getting really good reviews, which I thought was rather surprising.
So are we going to have a point at maybe this summer or spring where we're going to look and it's going to be all these top movies and we're going to realize it's all Disney? Because Disney owns Pixar, Disney owns Lucasfilm, Disney now owns a big chunk of Fox. So are we getting to that point where Disney has the monopoly on the box office on the big weekends?
I don't know. What do you guys think about that? The Disney purchase. I feel like the only thing I heard, like I was reading all the news and the details and the money, and the only thing I heard was, "Oh my God, X-Men are back."
It's interesting because it's really, I mean, reading deep about it from Disney's perspective, this whole thing is really about getting more stake in Hulu so that they can battle Netflix better. And that's really kind of, I mean, obviously they want more content so that they can kind of plug it into Hulu. They're opening up their own digital streaming service that's more kid friendly in 2019, I believe. So Hulu, they're going to kind of, now that they're the main stockholder in Hulu, they can push more of the adult content there, and they can move all of the kid content to what they're going to do in 2019. They're pulling out of Netflix. This is largely just a big thing to counter all of that sort of stuff. In all of what Netflix has shown is that it's a great model, and here they are, Disney, and kind of taking on everything that Fox has just so they can consider themselves a force worth reckoning in the marketplace for it.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think it's interesting because, as I've mentioned before, there's a lot of original programming on Hulu that's really strong, and I really enjoy a lot of it. And it's nice to have that alternative to Netflix, because Netflix has some great original programming. But what I've seen over the past year is Hulu has really been able to negotiate some really strong contracts and deals with studios. There was I think it was Sony, that a bunch of their stuff went from Netflix over to Hulu. You used to go into Hulu and it was sort of like browsing, Blockbuster, where like there were the new releases and those were all gone. So you sort of picked through the direct to video stuff. That was what Hulu used to primarily have, was a lot of this. I don't even remember hearing about this movie. What is this? I don't even recognize anybody in it. And now you're getting a lot more of those big name, features over there. So it's really a nice competitive market between the two. And to me, the strength of Hulu is they've got that for, I think, ABC, NBC, and Fox, any of their TV shows next day, they're there. So like I can watch Saturday Night Live on Sunday. I can watch, all of those things the next day. Whereas Netflix, you've got to wait till the season's done and then like 6 months before you're going to get to catch a show. And so for me, that's how I balance my cord cutting, is Netflix for their original programming and some movies, and Hulu has replaced my, cable TV. I've got all these great network shows I've got access to, plus that great original programming like Marvel Runaways, Shut Eye, The Path, great stuff on there. So I'm interested.
Handmaid's Tale.
Oh my gosh, Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. They have seriously been killing it, and they have a live TV service,
yes,
right? I mean,
they do.
You can pay up. They've just been killing it. They really have been killing it, before this thing. I think the big fear, and why I say it's not necessarily a bad thing kind of under my breath, because this media consolidation thing it strikes a lot of fear, and this one is one of those examples where it's possible it's actually it could actually be good for us and for nerds. Who just want to get all their stuff in one place, because there are a lot of sort of artificial political, financial barriers that keep us from being able to access our content where we want to get it. Not that there isn't something to be concerned about when it comes to, media consolidation. We're not in an economic climate or a political climate where anybody's going to look at that, which is, it is what it is. But, in terms of being able to open Hulu on my devices and see the content I want to see, I think I'm more likely to be able to do that, now than, a week ago.
Well, it seems like the walls have come down.
Unless you're CBS.
Well, yeah, but what was really interesting was I've got an Apple TV, and there was a new channel that showed up there, Amazon Video. I was like,
yep.
This whole like Movies Anywhere deal where it's like now you buy it in one place and it shows up everywhere, and to see that Apple's allowing an Amazon channel, so you're buying your movies from Amazon, you can watch that on your Apple TV, because before that was one of those you pick one or the other, and now it's really opening up, which I think is great. But yes, I'm cautiously optimistic to see what's going on. Is it a data sharing thing? How are they monetizing this? But I think it's making it easier for the consumers, which everybody's all for.
Unless you're CBS.
Yes, unless you're CBS.
This episode is going to be called Unless You're CBS.
Yes.
So they still have a little tiny chunk of Star Trek, don't they?
Yes.
They'll cling. God. They're going to cling to that one.
I spit at thee. That's what they're saying.
Oh, man.
For crying out loud. Let's talk about trailers.
Let's do it.
Steve, you go first.
Okay. What is my trailer?
Would you like me to read it out?
No.
No. We haven't been drinking yet today.
No, I know. That's the problem. I haven't had my coffee. Different type of drinking going on this morning. I got to remember, what did I do? Oh, right now I remember, because I watched mine last night. I watched yours this morning.
We're calling yours the soft hijack film.
Okay, yes.
In our theme of hijack films.
Okay, exactly. So this is one that sort of caught me. I found it not where I normally find my trailers. Somebody else had shared it on Facebook. I was like, how did this get past me? So this is a film called The Public, written and directed by Emilio Estevez, and has like everybody in it. You've got Jenna Malone, Christian Slater, Alec Baldwin, Gabrielle Union, Jeffrey Wright. And this is a story of a public library in Cincinnati that during a very cold winter is basically overtaken by homeless that need a place to stay. And so it becomes sort of, they've taken the public library hostage because they are making a stand saying, hey, we're people, we're valuable. Because the trailer sets up, there was a homeless man that froze the night before right outside the front door of the public library. And so it becomes, yes, your soft hijack film of, what is the city's stance going to be on their, responsibilities to, the library as the last bastion of democracy, and the hordes of homeless out there making a stand that they are people too. I do not have any release information on this. I think it's still playing at festivals, so there isn't a date, but I think we're looking sometime in 2018, and I'm excited to see Emilio Estevez writing and directing, and I think this is again one of these sort of statement films that's going to get people hopefully talking about social issues, which I always have a soft spot for, of films that want to get us to think about things.
Yeah, I think it has a great feel to it. I haven't seen anything else that Emilio Estevez has done.
You haven't seen Men at Work?
That he's directed. Did he direct Men at Work?
He wrote and directed Men at Work.
No, I haven't seen anything that he's directed. So I'm curious about this one, though. It looks pretty interesting. I like the vibe of it. I like the feel. Michael Kenneth Williams, I think, is a really interesting actor, and is kind of the I guess you'd call him kind of the spokesman for the homeless in this particular story. He stands out as a really interesting actor and a great face to kind of have these conversations with Emilio and kind of push his buttons to see if he's going to take a stand against the system. And he was great in The Wire. He's been in 12 Years a Slave, lots of great stuff. It looks really interesting, and I'm curious about it. It's one that I wonder if it's in the end, if it's going to end up just kind of feeling a little on the nose, or if it's going to really kind of stand out as something. But I'm willing to take a chance with it. It looks pretty interesting.
Oh man, me too. The cast alone, I think, is terrific. But it's an interesting story. You're right. I mean, it's something that's going to make you it's going to make you stop and think. And I think it could be a solid, candidate for feel good movie of the year in quotes. So I'm in.
All right.
Awesome.
Hey, it's Christian Slater. Anytime I see Christian Slater, there's the Christian Slater thing. It doesn't matter. You got to see it. It's Christian Slater. I think I'm going to go next because we're ramping up to the full hostage stories.
Okay.
We're in intensity, and mine is slightly more intense than yours and definitely less intense than Andy's. This is the 1517 to Paris. It is the new film coming from director Clint Eastwood. Tells a story of American soldiers who discover or are embroiled in a terrorist plot on a Paris-bound train. It is a true story. It's based on the book. You will never guess the title. The 1517 to Paris, The True Story of a Terrorist, a Train, and Three American Heroes by Jeffrey Stern. I don't know if that spoils anything. So here's what's interesting about this trailer. It's Clint Eastwood, and I think his trailers his movies have, they've moved in a certain ideological direction. So I think I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of this movie. But what is interesting about it is it was back in it was in June of this year that Eastwood announced that he had chosen Kyle Gallner, Jeremy Harris, and Alexander Ludwig to star as the three American heroes, Alex Skarlatos, Anthony Sadler, and Spencer Stone, in the movie. And then, in July, Eastwood came back and said, you know what, I'm just going to cast Skarlatos, Sadler, and Stone to play themselves. So the soldiers, who are the heroes that were on the train, are playing themselves in the movie about their lives. I don't know what to think of that. Have we seen a movie that has done that before?
I mean, I feel like there have been biopics where people who have been involved were in it, but I don't know of any where it's like a terrorist situation sort of thing.
Right.
It seems a little PTSD inducing.
Yeah, maybe it's therapy. I
Or
don't know, but
therapeutic.
that is the thing that makes me curious about this movie. That's the thing that makes me, battle the urge to say, and actually check it out, because who knows? Who knows what we're going to get from these guys? It was interesting. The trailer was interesting. I didn't get, I think, a solid read on performances from these guys in this movie. They looked to me a little bit like, hey, these guys aren't professional trained actors, and they're playing the parts of themselves, and maybe they've made themselves look actually less natural than they are in real life. And so I don't know, but I'm really curious about this. Steve, you actually had a hard time battling.
Yeah, that's the challenge I have is, typically when you're going to have someone play themselves, it's someone in the entertainment industry. So we see news anchors and playing themselves, in movies, or someone like Howard Stern, who's in the entertainment industry, playing himself in his own story. I think the closest we might get is Stan Lee, playing himself in small cameos. But to carry a full film is asking a lot of people that don't have that experience, expertise, and training. So, yes, it makes sense to cast them in the story of the events that they've lived through. How well they're going to be able to get that across visually, I don't know. So I'm intrigued. It's an interesting approach to telling the story. So I'm always up for a film like this that's going to give us a little bit more in-depth insight into actual events that occurred, rather than what we can try to find online. This is going to give us, again, one particular take. We know we're going to get this story from their point of view, clearly, from these three guys. So I'm interested in this, but again, I don't know that I don't see this being alongside a lot of Eastwood's other work where it's clear this is like Best Picture, we're getting some stellar performances. He may be able to get something surprising out of these three guys. I hope so. So I'm just sort of on the fence on this one.
I think On the Fence is right, but deeply curious, and it's worth checking out the trailer to just get a look at these guys, because they're, it doesn't look. I mean, it's a solid trailer. It's a solid trailer that actually, we know kind of where the story is going to go. We're already spoiled because of the title, and I think it does a good job of painting the picture of who these guys are, and before giving us a little hint at the actual incident that that is their story. And so I don't know. I think it's interesting.
So I'm looking at the rest of the cast. And so IMDb has this categorized as drama history. So I don't know. When I see Tony Hale cast and Jaleel White cast, I have trouble taking this seriously as a drama.
Yeah, I know. You never know. It may be Tony Hale with the Best Supporting Actor as gym teacher.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't count your chickens, Steve.
Okay, I won't.
This one comes out. Go ahead.
I was just saying, here are a few other people who played themselves, just so you know. Jackie Robinson played himself in the Jackie Robinson story. Decathlete, Olympic decathlete Bob Mathias played himself in the Bob Mathias story. Muhammad Ali played himself in The Greatest. And Audie Murphy played himself into Hell and Back. There's the closest, I guess, to this, where he played himself in in a story about his time in the war into Hell and Back. And then, of course, we have Howard Stern playing himself in Private Parts.
Yeah, and that was also a story of trauma. Of great trauma, speaking of PTSD. This movie, 1517 to Paris, comes out in France on February 7th, UK and US February 9th. And we've got a couple more countries throughout South America, Russia, and Europe opening the following 2 weeks. And that's all we know. All right, Andy, bring it home.
All right. My trailer is 7 Days in Entebbe, which is the film about the true events of the 1976 hijacking of an Air France flight en route to Tel Aviv to Paris, and it gets hijacked by the PLO, and it is another interesting hijacking story, and really it's about kind of the rescue mission that takes place afterward as the Israeli Defense Force puts a plan into action to save the people. It looks like a really interesting story. It looks like kind of I mean, it's a real full-on hijacking in the context of our three trailers. I mean, here we have a whole plane that gets hijacked, dumped into a foreign country where at the time Idi Amin was running the country, and he was in support of the hijackers. He gave them a place to kind of hole up and everything. And it was this big political mess. And of course, the Israeli Defense Forces, in the context of the whole thing, they do a rescue operation, and then Idi Amin ends up going and killing a bunch of what is the country? I think it was Kenya that was helping, and he goes and attacks them. It just was a big political imbroglio, I guess you could say. But this is the film version of it, and I'm really curious to see it. Rosamund Pike stars as one of our kidnappers, along with Daniel Bruhl, two very interesting actors I'm always excited by. Eddie Marsan, who we've talked about on the show before on, what was it? The World's End. That's the one I can remember we talked about. He looks like a really interesting, or he's giving an interesting performance as somebody, as a member of the Israel Defense Forces and everything. I'm really curious about how this one is going to come down. Jose Padilla is directing this. He had done Elite Squad, which is a very popular, and its sequel, two very popular Brazilian films, before he went and decided to do RoboCop, the remake. But that aside, I think he is a really interesting director with a definite good handle on intensity. So I'm very curious about this one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm very excited about this. I think a great cast for this, and a story again that I just don't know as much about as I should. because of being very young at that time when this occurred, I believe. So yeah, I always appreciate learning a little bit more about history through movies. Again, knowing that it's a fictionalized account, but to me, a compelling story, and I think something to always reflect on in terms of current political scenarios and what's going on, to give us that, have we learned anything from history, and going back and looking at these stories and revisiting them and saying, are we progressing as a global society or not? Always an approach that I take to watching a film like this, but I am intrigued because of the director. I keep hearing great things about Elite Squad showing up on lists of movies you have to see. So not so excited about RoboCop remake, never saw that, but have heard great things about Elite Squad. So yeah, seeing this, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to see if I can find Elite Squad, because I'm really impressed with what this trailer is giving me. I think to attract this type of cast, you've got to have a great script. You've got to have, a director that looks like, from the trailer, getting some really solid performances out of this. And I think Eddie Marsan, I think this is hopefully a film that's going to stop him from being one of those guys. And, he's always these smaller parts that I'm always impressed with him and would like to see him doing so much more. So hopefully this is, again, one of those that's just going to keep building his career to being, something larger for him, because I think he deserves it.
For me too, Rosamund Pike, Daniel Bruhl, and Eddie Marsan, was seeing them in the trailer and just what they were taking on in terms of those characters it just found it really compelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
The movie is going to be opening in March here in the U.S., March 16th. It'll open before that in the U.K., March 9th, and the Netherlands and Spain are getting it in April. That's it for release dates right now, but I'm expecting it to expand. So there you go, 7 days in Entebbe.
Outstanding. Check the show notes for direct links to all of those great hijacking trailers. And now we've got to talk about the list.
Yes,
Andy?
we do. So we are talking about The Girl Who Played with Fire this week. And last week we decided that our list should be about great henchmen, as there is the fantastic henchman Niederman in The Girl Who Played with Fire that we learn is, well, I guess we shouldn't say, but he is a big, dangerous thug with...
Nice catch, Andy.
With the horrifying addition that he can feel no pain. And so with that, we put our list together of our favorite bad guy movie henchmen.
Let's keep going in the same order. Steve, why don't you start us off?
This was a difficult list to put together, trying to stick with our general guidelines of not doing movies that we've talked about on the show in detail. So I thought, okay, because I think the phrasing that we initially had was best sinister thugs, but I did get to the henchman route, and I sort of approached this with sort of the video game mentality of who's the one you have to get through before you get to the big bad boss, right? So that henchman. So who's the barrier or obstacle that we're fighting past? And I'm going to have an unconventional first pick, because this is one of the henchmen that I think most frustrated me in a good way, in terms of giving me lots of anxiety and frustration for my hero that I'm rooting for. This is this character that just like, oh my gosh, I hate this person so much. We have to destroy this person. And I'm talking about Dolores Umbridge from the Harry Potter series. She is like the greatest henchman ever, because she is not the physically imposing. She's like the bureaucratic henchman that is able to thwart Harry at every turn. And it just, oh my gosh, I love to hate her so much.
With all of her cats.
With her cats and her pink outfits, but because she doesn't seem imposing, she doesn't seem like the threat, but she is like one of the worst threats he faces in terms to getting done what he needs to get done. And to me, that's what makes her such a great henchman, is, being that absolute barrier and completely thwarting the hero at every possible opportunity.
That's awesome.
That is a fantastic choice.
That's a great pick. All right. My first one is, I also had a hard time. I realized the first 3 or 4 that I picked were all movies we'd talked about. Great henchman, Mr. Joshua in Lethal Weapon. That was high. Mr. Hanks, Inspector. That was high on my list. And I ended up going with one that we wait a minute. I should search the site before I do this. I'll pick another one. I just realized I may have picked another one that I haven't done. I'm going to start with one that I don't know. Maybe it's a little unconventional. It is Lurtz the Uruk-hai, played by Lawrence Makoare, who is henchman to Sauron in Lord of the Rings.
There you go.
It turns out that two of my picks are actually henchmen to great omniscient beings that are bent on taking over the universe in some way, shape, or form. I did not see that pattern erupting, but I thought this was a really creepy and excellent addition to Lord of the Rings, and I think Lawrence Makoare plays a terrific maniacal leader of the Uruk-hai as he crosses the plains to catch the Fellowship. So I thought it was great. That's my number one.
That's a great one, and very easily there are a number of good other options in that franchise that could also fall in as the henchmen. And I'm tempted to start there, but I'm not going to. I am actually going to start with one of the most memorable henchmen in a film from my youth that still sticks with me, in a film that probably was far too gory for me to watch when it came out, but it fueled my my fascination with movie effects and just all the awesomeness that could come of it. And it's just the incredibly over-the-top, fun and gory movie Paul Verhoeven did in 1987, RoboCop, with the fantastic Clarence Boddicker, played by Kurtwood Smith, as just the maniacal and sadistic evil henchman for Dick Jones. He is so awesome in this movie, and he's just so evil. Just the way that he tortures Officer Murphy at the beginning of the film when they catch him, and he's just so terrible and so perfect at being terrible. I love everything that he does in the film, and he is just the perfect henchman for the corporate Dick Jones, and I just love seeing him in this film. So that is my first choice, RoboCop.
And the first steal of the morning.
And I'm going third, so I feel good about stealing.
No, I know you should feel very good about that.
I think it was getting cast as Boddicker in RoboCop that allowed Kurtwood Smith to be such an effective Red Foreman on that 70s show. It's like,
it's true.
Just such a great character. All right. So I'm staying on my unconventional route. I think we're all gonna find ourselves in that area to find these films we haven't talked about. So again, this one, another female henchman to an extent, and I think in this case, being a henchman to a not a single character, but sort of society, and I'm talking about Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, sort of as the embodiment of the system and being that, again, force, that our heroes are pushing against. So she is my second unconventional and female henchman.
Nice.
Oh,
she's pretty evil.
Pushing the gender boundary on the henchman.
I'm a little torn on her being the antagonist straight up in that film and calling her a henchman, but these lists are all about cheating. Sure. So there you go.
Wait. How did it go from bending the rules to just stop cheating? It's not, you're bending the rules now. Cheat.
Nope, okay. Straight up cheating.
I'm just cheating. Yeah,
I
agree. It's pushing, but I think, what she in the story, what she represents is, a larger force. And so I'll make that argument, but I admit, I'm pushing it.
That's okay. I forgive you. I might be pushing it on one of mine. We'll see if anything else of mine gets stolen before we get to it.
Okay. Well, mine is, this one's on the clock. And the reason I know it's legit is because it's on our watch list for the next 6 months. It is, in fact, our holiday movie. I'm talking about Karl Vresky, played by the fantastic dancer Alexander Goodenough, henchman to Hans Gruber in Die Hard. That's our holiday movie of this year, coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Yep. Good choice.
I knew one of you guys was going to take that one, so I stayed away from that.
Well, kudos to you, sir. I tip my hat.
Thank
with
you.
that, just in case, I don't want this one to get stolen from me, so I'm just going for it, even though it was going to be my number one. I am going with the brilliant Count Rugen from The Princess Bride. One of my favorite movie sidekicks. It's just fantastic, and I think that Christopher Guest does such a great job as the six-fingered man to the who's the Count to Prince Humperdinck, brilliantly played by Chris Sarandon. He is so great. The way that he tortures Wesley is just fantastic. His demeanor is great, and of course, he has the brilliant line, "If you haven't got your health, then you haven't got anything." He's so good as he's doing his torture, and it's brilliant. And then of course the fact that he runs when he's confronted. I love Count Rugen, and I love The Princess Bride. So that is my next pick.
That's a movie, and that's a performance that, like, it's one of those where when you watch the movie as a kid and you're sort of taking on roles in your head, like, who would I be? Maybe the six-fingered man is a candidate, and it's rare to see the henchman as a candidate for my early movie fantasies. It's just so good. It's so funny, and I really wanted six-fingered gloves. I thought that was crazy cool.
Oh, it was great.
What could you do if you had an extra finger? Oh, man.
You could
I
torture
do all
people.
kinds of cool stuff.
So funny.
Steve, what's your last one?
So I kept trying to think, who are some great actors that played just great villains and henchmen? And it took me to an interesting little path, because I all my good ones I could not go with, because they, you named several of them. So I ended up with Clancy Brown as Captain Byron Hadley from Shawshank Redemption.
Wow.
Again, as that sort of brute that isn't, again, I think, the main antagonist, but again that force to get through, to get past, and how Andy is able to sort of befriend him and get him on his side. But it's thinking about those characters that you just love to hate because they're so good at being just evil and mean. And to me, Clancy Brown is that actor, can do that so effectively. And I think, Byron Hadley in Shawshank is just one of the great ones.
That's a great pick.
Nice.
It turns out we have talked about The Matrix, guys. I don't know if you knew that.
I did, because that was on my list. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
That's really
we haven't talked
disappointing.
about Matrix 2 or 3.
That's true. But I am actually going to stick with I think my favorite pick. It is in a different sort of class of film, perhaps. It is one of the funniest movies that I have ever seen, and that I think takes henchmen in a new direction. It is Igor, played by Marty Feldman, henchman to Gene Wilder's great Dr. Friedrich Frankenstein in Young Frankenstein. And, I have to go back. I actually had to look at the origins of the word henchman, and I have some history, because I feel like I had to defend this pick, because it's a comedy, and what we were talking about was clearly not a funny movie, the tie to The Girl Who Played with Fire. Do you know when the term henchman started being sort of coming into favor? Anybody? Any guesses?
No, when? No. Tell us.
1300s, Andy. The 1300s. It comes from the Old English word hengist, literally means horse, and refers to an employee otherwise known as a groom who would tend to a master's animals. Later, the term would be used to describe a page or hand scribe, before the phrase being coined as a personal assistant by Highland Scottish chiefs in the 1700s, an advancement that would lead to much wider acknowledgement as a word to describe a right-hand man. Got to get your right-hand man back. Minor history lesson done. Modern-day dictionary definition of a henchman has very little to do with tending to an employee's livestock. It does, however, define a faithful and trusted follower or political supporter of a powerful person, especially one who's prepared to engage in dubious activity, crime, or violence by way of service, like stealing brains and grave robbing. I defend my comedic pick.
I love that you
Igor.
actually brought the whole defense to it. That's fantastic.
I had to do the whole thing. Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, lots of great choices. I've had a good number of mine stolen, so I'm going to go with one of my backups, which I think is it's actually a great choice, and I actually am glad I am going to do this one. I was actually going through the list of Bond henchmen, trying to find a great henchman to throw in, and I'm like, should I do Odd Job? Should I do Jaws? Lots of great choices, but in the end, I decided one of the ones that I just had the most joy watching, as much as I love those ones, is just the over-the-top insanity that Famke Janssen brings to Xenia Onatopp.
Onatopp! Yeah.
The sadistic henchwoman who tortures and kills her enemies by crushing them between her thighs. Just so brilliant. And I love her as much as I have issues with GoldenEye as a Bond film. It's still enjoyable, but it has plenty of issues. I think she was one of the freshest ideas to bring to the Bond henchman, and I had so much fun watching her in this role. It looked like she had a lot of fun playing the role. It was just over the top Bond nonsense at its best. I had a great time. So that is my final pick: Famke Janssen, Xenia Onatopp in GoldenEye.
That is a great pick. I was so close. I did. Steve, did you start with the Bond henchman too? That's definitely where I went.
Well, actually, my first thought was the German mechanic in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But then it went right to Bond, and I was like, okay, Pete and Andy are going to be all over these, so I'm just avoiding that. But
isn't that funny that we only ended up with one Bond pick?
But it's a great one, because I think any young boy watching that movie was, willing to die between her thighs. I don't think that,
Oh dear. The other Bond one is actually outside of Bond canon for me, and that was in Never Say Never Again, henchman to Klaus Maria Brandauer's Maximilian Largo. It was, of course, Barbara Carrera playing the great Fatima Blanche. And when that final scene, when she gets skewered by the missile fountain pen in the dark alley, was just an amazing way to go. And I absolutely, and she's trying to make him right that she was the greatest lover ever.
Yes.
The great Mr. Bond. That was a great way to go. So that was definitely on my list as a bonus.
We could have just done all Bond henchmen here.
We could have done all Bond. Yeah, that's true. Great list. Okay, so now we're going into the girl who kicked the hornet's nest. Do you have any thoughts on our list for next week?
Movies featuring hornet's nests.
Insects? Yeah.
So that rules out the bee movie, right? Because bees, not the hornets.
That's right.
Okay.
Not the bee's nest.
Okay.
What are you thinking? And I'm working at a deficit. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've seen it, but it's been a long time, and so I haven't watched it yet for the movie this week.
It's going to be the big trial for her. I'm wondering if we do like big trials, or we could do government conspiracies, because it certainly is a big government conspiracy that is covering up this whole all these shenanigans with Zala. So we could go that route, or great movie tattoos.
We're gonna hang on to that one.
Oh yes, we are.
I like great trials. Great courtroom movies.
Well, I think if it's going to be something tied into this, just to narrow it down a tiny bit, because trials, I mean, obviously can be huge.
It's a little broad.
I think it needs to focus in on one one person who is kind of the defendant, and they're trying to set them free. So I mean, maybe where the protagonist is the defendant, not like something like Erin Brockovich, where the system is coming apart, whatever. They're fighting this whatever they were, the people dumping the toxic fuels or something. I don't know.
Okay. So we're talking about great protagonist defendants in trial movies.
Yes,
that are also potentially
government conspiracies.
Government conspiracies.
That sounds crazy.
government conspiracies.
And by the way,
not like Aaron Brockovich.
Well, Aaron Brockovich actually kind of fits. Because it's a bunch of protagonists. It's like the entire town is the.
And there's not really a trial person. I mean, I'm thinking we want to see courtroom action with the protagonists, at the stand type of. That's the direction I'm hearing from this. Is that we're in the courtroom and our protagonist is involved in the court case.
Okay, so that would knock out movies like A Few Good Men because our protagonist is the attorney.
Yes, because you can't handle this list.
You can't handle this list. That's where I was hoping you would go. Okay, that's good. I could do that.
I think there's plenty. I think there's plenty in there. Yeah.
Yep, I do too. That's a good list. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, we are going to see Star Wars and Star Wars again in some cases, and then we're going to talk about it tonight. So if you're listening to the show today, Saturday, join us again in a few hours. We're going to be talking about it again with the film board. I think it's a big film board tonight. I don't think anybody's skipping.
Yeah, and then that'll go live Tuesday?
Yeah, that'll go live too. Well, yeah, it's Star Wars. Maybe we'll just throw it out there. Throw it out there, Andy.
Look at you.
As soon as it's ready.
Wow.
I don't know. I want to give the Patreon folks a few days to listen to it. So if you're listening to this, you will get it as soon as I'm finished editing it.
Ooh. Wow.
That's right.
You're a giver.
Right.
Perks. Yay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy Saturday to you guys. Good luck with your car, Andy.
Thank you. And may the force be with you both.
And that's what we've got for today. Thanks for listening, folks.
Zoinks, car horn.